What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the overall market moving forward as we have new developments on the charts and what you should be watching for as time goes on. Let me just mention that I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. Anyways, for Tesla, we're making a very, very nice move right here, making higher highs and higher lows. We can obviously draw a little trend line right over here to kind of map out where Tesla's support happens to be. It's going to be one area that's worth watching for, at least for the time being. So Tesla's riding this trend line up for now. We also have these key supports at these EMAs, so it's doing a very, very good job at holding up and uptrending, and we have some very, very nice looking bullish confluences. So I'll talk more about this as time goes on. The chart is looking more bullish so far as we have imbalances to fill, but whether or not this happens depends on some factors I want to talk about. Then I'll break down the charts in more details in just a few minutes. So the first thing worth noting is that for the week, Monday and Tuesday are not going to be two crazy data days. We have very, very minor data coming out for those days. But then Wednesday through Friday is when things become very serious for the markets. So as a reminder, for this Wednesday, we have FOMC minutes coming out at 2 o'clock p.m. For Thursday, we have the PMI report coming out. That's going to cause some high volatility. And then for Friday, we have the notorious Jerome Powell giving a speech. Whatever this guy says may shake the markets, so get ready for that. However, we're not there yet, so we're just going to focus on Monday. Monday is tomorrow, August 19th, 2024. Notes that Waller gives a speech in the morning. Might not cause too much, and then at 11:30 a.m., we have the 3 and 6 month bill auctions coming out. So this is significant because right now the market is not going to be responding as much to data. The market has more freedom to do its thing, and this does open the door for more manipulation. So typically on a lot of days we have like big data that comes out, the market gets a big reaction. In this case, it's very different. There's not really much data coming out for Monday, so the market has a lot of freedom. So keep that in the back of your guys' minds. I also want to note that currently the market thinks there's a 75% chance we get a 25 basis point cut from the Fed, and a 25% chance now we get a 50 basis point cut. That's what we're seeing so far, and that's what the market's pricing in for FOMC, which is about 1 month away from now. Now, when it comes to other pieces of data, just note that we have some earnings coming out. For those who are interested, a lot of retail are coming out for the week. Very minor earnings for Monday, but then on Tuesday, we have Lowe's and a few others. For Wednesday, we have Target, Macy's, TJ Maxx, and Zoom. And for Thursday, we have Peloton, not to mention Red Robin, Ross, and a few others. So I just wanted to call that out. So that's what we're seeing for earnings. As far as Tesla goes, we're getting some news coming out that Tesla has built 400 supercharger stalls in Hong Kong, which is a very, very significant achievement, in my opinion, just showing how they're not only growing across the world, but they're getting a lot of exposure. And very, very awesome, in my opinion. I can't wait to see what else the future holds. I can't wait to see what new gigafactories Tesla announces and what other pieces of growth come. Now, with the high interest rate environments, especially with what's going on around the world, Tesla's not in a position to announce as many gigafactories and such, but I'm sure as the Fed cuts and as time goes on, yes, Tesla will be in a better position to do so. And there's going to be a lot of growth coming. I think we're just getting started for Tesla. And then there's also other factors like AI, Optimus, not to mention the robo-taxi. We have the big events coming out in less than 2 months, so I can't wait for that. Cantor Fitzgerald gave Tesla a neutral rating, saying it's going to perform equally with that of the markets. And we also have the price pairs ratio. So notice how this was on a downtrend. It's trying to bounce a little bit right here. This is a sign that Tesla is gaining some strength. It's getting stronger compared to the market. That's a good sign so far. I want to see this maintain this level, try to go a little higher, and that could help Tesla quite a bit. On top of this, I just want to mention that Mondays are known for being green about 53% of the time for Tesla. That's a good sign for tomorrow. And then we tend to see more volatility at 11 o'clock a.m. and also at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That tends to be one of the most volatile hours for the share price. September and August and September are historically not the strongest months for the stock. November is known for being very strong, so we'll see how things go, especially as we approach the robotaxi event. But I presume that August will be a good month for Tesla, especially as we approach the end of it. Volume is only at about 88 million, a little bit below average for Tesla, so not too bad. So I'm not really seeing too much significant news coming out for today. We'll see if this changes tomorrow. And always remember, guys, the news is another factor I can't always predict. I can't always predict everything that's going to happen when it comes to wars or what the media says about Tesla, but I can tell you what the charts suggest and what's very probable based off confluences and many different factors. So here's Tesla's levels. If Tesla retraces, okay, you're going to be looking at this 200 EMA, this 210 area is one of our supports. If we lose that, we're going to be looking at this trend line around this. We have 208, then 205 as two supports, and the trend line is going to be our main support. If Tesla were to hypothetically do this, let me just show you the bearish case. Okay. If we lose this trend line like this, we lose the 205 area, there's going to be a risk of a bigger drop on Tesla. And if we hold above the trend line, as long as we hold above this, okay, and I would really like it if you guys could draw this yourselves when trying to like trade or short Tesla. That way, you're always prepared for anything. But as long as we hold this support right here around this 210 area, there's a good chance we will try to bounce and rebound. The resistance to watch for is going to be right here, this 220 area. It's a little bit tough for Tesla for now. If we crack past that resistance or in this 210 220 area, excuse me, we're going to be pushing all the way up to fill lots of these imbalances. We'll be going up easily to 222, then eventually 225, and then 230. Those are going to be three levels of resistance, which I think Tesla could try to attempt to break. So I think there's a good chance that Tesla will attempt to get up to these high levels as long as we could try to get back above that 220 area. And I think that nonetheless, the chart is still looking quite bullish. So we're looking pretty good here. We're making some nice moves on Tesla, especially as we have these imbalances to fill. And I think that there's a good chance of more upside for the share price. So what do I think is going to happen for tomorrow? What is my prediction? That's what the real question is. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a little dip in the morning because Tesla did this many times, right? This happened on Wednesday. We kind of dipped a bit. On Thursday, we dipped and pumped. Friday, we dipped and pumped. Tomorrow, we might dip a little bit and retest these EMAs, this like 212 area. But we'll see if we hold. If we hold above this nicely, we could continue to pump. And nonetheless, we still look bullish. And I think we will eventually get up to the 230s within 2 weeks. I think within 2 to 3 weeks, we will get up here in the 230s. I think we're trying to form a nice cup. So in the morning, look for a little bit of a dip and then possibly a nice bounce and a continuation higher. And for the end of the week, especially, that's when we're going to likely see a nice attempt to get all the way up here. So I think Tesla has a lot of potential. But tomorrow morning, look for a little bit of a dip to 212. As long as we hold above that, we could try to rebound and continue into the 220s. So I think we look more bullish, but watch your levels just to be safe. Tesla still looks very nice. Now let me skip over to the IWM before I talk about SPY and the others, because I really, really like the setup on the IWM. Just like Tesla, it's a similar setup. We have this nice trend line we're riding upwards, and we have these key levels up here, especially this like 216 area. So what's going to likely happen is this. I already mapped this out. So we have this trend line as our support. We'll be watching to see if we just push straight up to 216 to fill the gap, or if we get a little retracement down to about 209. That could happen. We might retrace a bit. I think there's a higher probability of that playing out. A little retracement to 209, then we slowly push our way back up to 216, and eventually into the 220s to fill these imbalances over the next 2 weeks. So I favor the IWM is going to get a nice pump for the next 2 weeks. But there might be a little retracement first before we continue higher. That's the most likely possibility. I'm calling this out because I really like this setup. I think it has a very nice setup as well, just like that of Tesla, very similar looking. So look for and see if we get a little bit of a dip and then see if we get a nice bounce after that. I think nonetheless, we look very, very bullish. If we were to lose this 209 area, there's going to be a risk of us coming down to 207. If we break past resistance around 214, we could easily push to fill the gap towards 216. We look bullish. There could be a dip first before we continue higher, but the chart remains bullish. For other tickers, for other tickers, we have like SPY. SPY is now trying to push up towards this resistance around this 556 area. If we break 556, we're going to be pushing like very close to about 560, but that depends, guys. This is going to be a tough resistance. So, see this red area I have marked here? This is a tough resistance. If we manage to break this, we're going to be pushing for 560. Okay, 556. If we break that, we're going up to 560. If we can't break that, if we don't break the resistance, because it's going to be tough, I'm going to be 100% honest about that. It's also possible that we get a retracement off this. So I think we might push a little higher, close to about 556. If we get a retracement, we could be retesting 552, if not 549.5. And then if we hold support, we could try to bounce like this. If we get a deeper retracement, it's going to be based off what support we hold. So if we retrace, hypothetically, okay, you're looking at 552 and 554.5 as supports. If 559 559.5, if we lose that support, SPY is going to be dipping all the way down towards the lower 540s, and then we could get a bounce after that. And then this also resembles like a nice inverse head and shoulders. So that's also a strong possibility. But for now, here's what you're going to do. You're going to watch this level. This is all you're going to be watching for now, just to see the reaction. Do we push towards 556 and then get a rejection? And do we start retracing like this? Or do we break through 556 and remain bullish, right? We're going to be watching this big test on SPY tomorrow and also on like Tuesday and Wednesday. the chart is bullish, making higher highs and higher lows. There's no sign of us rejecting, but we're approaching some tough resistance. So watch and see if we break this or not, and then that's going to give you the insights on whether or not the bullish and bearish cases come. Right, so watch and see what kind of reaction we get at the resistance. That's going to determine if we get a big rejection or not. It's very simple. I think that we're forming a nice cup on ES. We look pretty nice right now. And I think we're going to push very close to about 5,600 on ES. If we break this, we could be pushing to about 5625 at least. And if we reject off 5,600, we could be dipping back down towards the 5550 area. So we'll see what kind of move we make. This could be forming an inverse head and shoulders as well. So if we do get some kind of rejection, hypothetically, watch and see where we end up retracing to. If we do something like this where we come down and right back up, this could be the inverse head and shoulders that could be forming on ES. So to determine if this is going to happen, all you have to do is wait. Okay, be very patient. I think we go a little higher on ES and then see if we get a rejection. Do we get the rejection off the resistance around 5,600 or not? That will determine if we're about to form like an inverse head and shoulders, a cup and handle, or are we about to just break out and continue to remain bullish? There have been instances where the market just kept going and kept going nonstop. So watch and see. Do we reject off this resistance or do we break through it? That's going to help you with your trading to know if we're about to go higher or not. And I honestly can't give you the answer yet. It depends on so many factors. So I would say the best thing to do is just wait, be very patient, and see how this kind of develops because it's a very, very tricky manipulated market right now. For SPX, we have 5560 as resistance. If we break this, we're easily going up towards 5580 and very close to about 5600. And if you reject off 5560, look at support right here at 5520. I'll be watching to see if we end up losing that support. If we lose the support, we're going to be dipping towards 5,500 flats and eventually have that gap to fill. So we have this nice inverse head and shoulders like structure that's forming. I'm going to close this line so you guys can see it. There's like a left shoulder here, and we could be forming like a right shoulder. We'll see. So it's the same thing as ES. Do we push a little bit higher and break past 5560 easily, or do we see a big tough resistance that kind of rejects us? Why do I call out that level? Because look at this right here. We have a very important resistance right over here where we rejected 2 times. We got 2 big rejections here on SPX. So watch that resistance very carefully. For Nvda, just like that of the others, I want to make it very clear that this is attempting to push higher. We have that gap to fill around 126. I wouldn't be surprised if we push up towards that 126 area to fill our gap, but there's a big but. Even if we do fill this gap, will we get a rejection near 126 and start dipping back down to 121.5? Or do we break 126 and start pushing for almost 130? It all depends on a lot of different factors. Nvidia is trying to uptrend as well. It's doing a very, very good job at holding up. But I think that we might attempt to fill this gap, and then we'll see if we get a rejection or not temporarily, because we did reject off 128 in the past and also around 130. So we do have that resistance that's coming up, especially near 129. I presume what's going to happen is we'll get very close to that area. I think there's a good chance we're going to try to push higher, and we'll see how things go. Now, if we don't break 125, look at 121.5 as critical support. If we lose that, we turn bearish, and we're going to be looking for a little retracement on Nvidia, just temporarily, right? Just a temporary move to the downside. If we break 125 to 126, we're going to be looking for 128 and 130. I think Nvidia is looking bullish right now. It looks like it wants to fill that gap. So I think it's going to go a little higher to at least the 126s and watch to see if we break through that or not. But so far, we look like we might go a little higher. Bitcoin is making lower highs right here. Look at support around 59,300. If we lose that, we're going to be filling these imbalances down to 58,000. If we break through 61,000, we turn bullish. Because we're making lower highs, there's a risk of us dipping towards this imbalance. I think the 58,000s are very probable. For Tesla, as one more reminder, we are approaching tough resistance, but we look bullish. Might retrace a little bit in the morning, then continue higher. For NQ is looking bullish, making higher highs and higher lows. But look at this red line up here. See how it's kind of like this tough resistance, which is where we rejected last time. 19,700. We might push a little bit towards 19,700. We'll see if we get a rejection back down. If we do reject off where we are, we'll be looking at 19,500 as our support. And if we break past 19,700, we could remain bullish. So watch and see if we get that little move to the downside. I'll be watching that carefully. We could be forming a cup right now. But there are some things that concern me for the Nasdaq and a lot of tech ETFs and futures out there, and that's because of what's happening with some tech stocks. So I do see a risk of this potentially coming down to about 19,500. I'm going to be honest about that. I'm seeing the 4 hours showing a little weakness, And then if that breaks, we could be retracing all the way down here to the next support. We'll see. We'll see if we try to push to this resistance and come back down. If we just come it down a little bit, we could be forming kind of like a cup and handle or an inverse head and shoulders. So I see a higher probability of that risk on a lot of the QQQs and the Nasdaqs out there. So why do I say that? We have 475 as a tough resistance. If we break that, we're going up to 480, by the way. If not, there's going to be a risk of us dipping towards 472.5. I think we might be dipping to the 472s, if anything, especially as the 4 hour is showing some contraction. So I'll be very, very patient, at least with the way things are moving. But I think that we could be dipping to about 472.5. So I'll be watching that as well just to see how things end up developing. I think there might be a little retracement on the QQQ, looking at the fact that we have this tough resistance. We kind of formed a double top here. So I think what I'm thinking is we might not break past 475 immediately. We might see a little retracement to 472.5, if not 468, and then we could bounce again. I think that the QQQ is very bullish overall, but there might be a little retracement coming, and it might do something like this. Let me just draw this out. Give me 1 second. We might retrace to 468 or so, and then continue higher for the inverse head and shoulders. Maybe it's just a bigger retracement, then we continue higher. We'll see. But hypothetically, if we were to break 475 and hold above it, then we could just go straight up and just completely invalidate that inverse head and shoulders and just continue higher. So it depends on this level, but I just want to say I'm seeing some very tough resistance at 475, and I do see a risk of us kind of retracing a bit to the lower 470s before we continue higher. So just wanted to keep that in the back of your guys' minds. Apple's looking more bullish. We could be approaching 227. If that breaks, we could be approaching 230. If we reject, we could be at risk of dipping all the way down towards 225, if not 223. So Apple might retrace a bit to 225, if not 223, then continue higher later on. So we'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case. For others out there like Palantir is looking like it might retrace to about 31.5, and then we could try to bounce again. If we break past 32.5, we could continue higher, but I see a risk of us retracing down here to at least 31.5 before anything else. For Supermicro, look at support around 604. If we lose that, we're going to be dipping down to about 580. If we break past 635, we're going to be looking for a push for about 660. I'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case, so watch your levels very carefully. For Rivian is actually forming a bearish wedge right now. So this is at risk of dipping. We got to try to reclaim 14.21 to turn back up. Otherwise, there's a risk of us dipping down towards the 12.5 area. So I do see a risk of that. SoFi looks more bullish. If we hold above 7, we're easily going to 7.25. If we lose that, we're going down to 6.8. We look a little bit more bullish on Rivian as we're making higher lows. I think there's a potential push for about 7.2 that's possible. For the IWM in my opinion is looking like it's kind of uptrending right over here. Like I said, a very, very nice setup. We'll see if we dip first and then continue higher, if we just continue higher. But this is looking very favorable as long as we hold above this white trend line. We look like we want to be pushing to the 220s over the next couple of weeks. For AMD, we're looking more bullish. We could retrace to about 145, then continue higher and go back up to about 151. I favor 151 at least as time goes on. For Coinbase, we look more bullish as long as we hold above 203. We're easily going up towards 210. If we lose 203, I think that we're going to retrace to 200. Looking at the 4 hour, we look more bullish, and we might just continue to push for that 210 area. So we look more bullish to me. I like the setup, so it's looking pretty good. For Amazon's doing a good job at trying to uptrend just like this. If we were to retrace, I'm going to be looking at basically 176 as our support. If that does not hold, we could retest this trend line right over here, which would take us very close to about the 173s. And then we got to bounce off that to continue higher. I think Amazon will eventually get to the 180s, okay? But we might retrace first before we continue higher. I think that's very favorable in my personal opinion. Meta is the same thing. We're looking at 525 as support. If we lose that, look at 520, then eventually the 511 area. I think 520 might be coming, then we'll see if we bounce or not. So look for a little retracement on Meta is the most likely possibility. We also have 530 and 534 as resistance, but I think we might dip. For Microsoft, we might be retesting 415. We'll see if we bounce off that or not, so watch that very carefully. For Google, I think it might be retesting 163.8. It might dip a little bit, and we'll see if it bounces. For just a few more like DJT is on a bit of a downtrend right here. I do see a risk of it coming down towards 22. For the VIX, we're dipping. We look bearish because the market is still going to try to go a little higher, but we're approaching some key supports, which makes things complicated for the markets. 14.25 is where the VIX has bounced off many times. So will the VIX retrace a bit? Will the market push a little higher? And then will the VIX get a big bounce, causing the market to dip a little bit? We'll have to wait and see, okay? But we're approaching some key support on the VIX. It is possible the market does retrace, especially as tech is showing a little bit of weakness. The 10-year will make a big move depending on Jerome Powell. Same thing with the dollar. The dollar is not affecting the market as much as before. It still looks kind of bearish as we have kind of like an inverted cup and handle. So we'll see. The dollar does suggest the market may have more upside coming. So my view of the market is this: we are bullish overall. I think the market will eventually try to push for those all-time highs. But for the super short term, we'll be watching to see if we get a temporary retracement as we're approaching some tough resistance. Okay, that's my view of the overall market. For Tesla, on the other hand, we look very bullish. If it retraces a little bit tomorrow, it should get bought back up as long as we hold some key supports, especially this trend line. And I think Tesla is still going to be pushing into the 225 and 230 area. We just might retrace a bit first before we continue higher over the next couple of weeks. So it's not going to go up to like 230, 240 overnight. It may take some time, but I think ultimately Tesla will get there over the next few weeks, and we still look very bullish. These dips are buying opportunities. I think there's a lot of potential in Tesla stock as I love the setup. Thank you for listening, guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll be back tomorrow morning before the market opens for another update. Have a great day, night, or evening, wherever you guys are, and peace out.